What happens when you take the creator of Star Wars, the director of The Godfather, the most successful recording artist of all time, and the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and lock them in a room with $17 million? You end up with the most impressive piece of corporate synergy since the 1964 World's Fair. In the mid-80s, two major things would happen that would change the course of theme park history. Movie executives Michael Eisner and Frank Wells took over the top jobs at Disney coming from Paramount. When they took over, the company was on the verge of being split up, with a failing movie division, an almost non-existent TV division, and stale theme parks. They had their work cut out for them. Also around this time, pop star Michael Jackson was at the top of his career, having just released his 6th album, Thriller, which would go on to be the best-selling album of all time. Jackson had also debuted the moonwalk, solidifying himself as not just a pop star, but a cultural phenomenon. In the 1998 book, Work in Progress, Eisner explained, quote, "The third idea we came up with for Disneyland was to create something with Michael Jackson, who appealed to teenagers, but also to young kids and even their parents. Jackson was a huge fan of our parks, sometimes visiting several times a month in and out of disguise. Our notion was to put him in an extended 3D music video. George Lucas happened to be one of Michael Jackson's heroes and provided another lure. Ultimately, Lucas decided to produce the video and recruited Francis Ford Coppola to direct," unquote. The result of this collaboration was one of the most groundbreaking cinema experiences to ever happen.
We'll be right back with more Historyland.
The Wizardry of Lucas. The mastery of Coppola. The phenomenal music and dance of Michael Jackson. Captain EO. In spectacular 3D. Coming September 19th to Disneyland at Walt Disney World and nowhere else in the universe.
On September 18th, 1986, Captain EO debuted at Disneyland 6 days after it opened at Epcot Center. At Disneyland, a new theater for Captain EO would be constructed in Tomorrowland, called the Magic Eye Theater. But the space used to be occupied by a few other things. In the late 50s, the area was originally going to be a part of the Main Street expansion called Liberty Street, but that's another topic for a different video. In 1961, the space was used for the Terrible Flying Saucers, a bumper cars type attraction, where guests would fly around in their very own flying saucer. The only problem was, it didn't work, and by 1966, it was gone and replaced by the new Tomorrowland stage. The stage would last up until 1986, when construction for the Magic Eye Theater would begin. George Lucas, who was already working with Eisner making Star Tours, signed on as executive producer, and had his friend Francis Ford Coppola sign on as director, and the all-star lineup goes up from there. The film was choreographed by Jeffrey Hornaday and Michael Jackson, photographed by Peter Anderson, cinematographer Vittorio Storano was the lighting director during much of the principal photography, produced by Rusty Lamorande and written by Lamorande, Lucas and Coppola, from a story idea by the artists of Walt Disney Imagineering. Lamorande also initially designed and created 2 of the creatures, and was an editor of the film. The score was written by James Horner and featured 2 songs, We Are Here to Change the World and Another Part of Me, both written and performed by Jackson himself. The cast is just as spectacular, with Jackson playing the titular character, and Angelica Houston as the Supreme Leader. Captain EO's alien crew consists of his small flying sidekick Fuzzball, the double-headed navigator and pilot Heidi, played by Debbie Lee Carrington, and Odie, Cindy Sorensen, robotic security officer Major Domo, played by Gary DePew, a small robot, Minor Domo, who fits into the module like Major Domo, and the clumsy elephant-like shipmate Hooter, played by Tony Cox, who always manages to upset the crew's missions. Dick Shawn plays Captain EO's boss, Commander Bog. With all these high-profile guys working on the music video, you might be wondering how much all this would cost. Well, estimates range from $17 to $23 million, which, when you put it into perspective, Disneyland cost $17 million to build in the mid-50s. That is a lot of money. And after spending all that money, you'd think it would be good, right? Well, while it was loved by fans of Jackson's work, critics were not too nice with it. Here's a paragraph from Charles Solomon writing in the Los Angeles Times on October 9th, 1986. For all its wondrous imagery, Captain EO is nothing more than an elaborate rock video in history, like a hollow chocolate Easter bunny. It's a glorious surface over a void. No one expects an amusement park division to be Gone with the Wind, but given that list of credits and the film's lavish budget, audiences have a right to expect more than empty flash. In 1997, Captain EO had its last show, and in the following year, it was replaced by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, based on the popular film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Although the original Disneyland in California was the third park to open Honey, I Shrunk the Audience after Epcot in Tokyo, it was the first park to close it, and the final showing would be on January 3rd, 2010. Disneyland's Imagination Institute closed its doors, probably forever, but in 2009, tragedy struck.
We'll be right back with more Historyland.
Did you know every episode of Historyland is made possible because of viewers like you? Thanks to Patreon, we can continue to make high-quality episodes you love, like this one. As always, you have access to our amazing Discord server and videos on YouTube, but for a bit more, you get access to the Yodeler tier, which gives you sneak peeks of upcoming videos and your name in each Historyland video. In the Heralder tier, you get exclusive access to live tapings of Historyland and more behind-the-scenes goodies. And for just a bit more, our Bobsledder tier gives you access to have your voice in an episode of Historyland and have creative input on videos. Here's a special thanks to this month's patrons.
We're getting some breaking news coming into the situation right now from about Michael Jackson, the king of pop, who's 50 years old. Let's go to Deborah Farrick. She's working the story for us. What are we picking up, Deb?
Well, Wolf, here's what we can tell you. This is what's being reported by KTLA. Apparently, Michael Jackson suffered cardiac arrest this afternoon. He was rushed to UCLA Medical Center.
I have to stop you for a second, AJ. CNN can now confirm from the LA coroner that Michael Jackson is dead.
Marking the third time an attraction had been revived from extinction, Captain EO made its return in 2010 in honor of Michael Jackson's passing the year prior. Now called Captain EO Tribute, the show was back at the Magic Eye Theater and was packed once again with Jackson's fans. Although only for a limited showing, it lasted from 2010 to 2014, which if you think about it isn't very limited, and was replaced by a preview showing of The Guardians of the Galaxy, which helps further my theory that Captain EO is Star-Lord's real dad. If you think about it, Star-Lord's father is Ego, Guardians starts with G, take out the G and you get EO. Not only that, over at Mission Breakout they play I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, which is EO trying to reach out to his long-lost son. Even though the iconic show is now gone from the Disney parks, the show will always have a special place in all of our hearts. And that's the history of Captain EO. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. If you've seen Captain EO, let me know what you thought of the show. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Twitter and support me on Patreon. Also check out my weekly podcast with Alex the Historian. The links to everything will be in the description. And as always, have a great big beautiful tomorrow.